Thank you very much. That was very impressive. You are perfectly on time, even with the drinking. But please don't go too far away, because the last program is a debate, and you are in the panel, so please come back on the stage. And also I'm calling our moderator, Máté Antal, who is my former colleague, and also I'm calling Dávid Vitézy, who almost won the election as a mayor, but now he sits in the most prestigious committee in the city. And I also call Bence Varga from Tympanon, and I have to thank him a lot for organizing this event. So he was quite helpful, and he was also part of the team who designed this wonderful venue. So Máté,
where are we sitting?
Excuse me?
Where do we sit? Or do we sit? Or do we
Well,
stand?
we have chairs here,
Okay.
but we can move it.
It's weird. It really is like a debate. It feels like this is Team A and that's Team B.
Yeah, no, we don't play ping pong.
Okay.
Okay,
We are on the same side.
form a circle. Okay.
I'll take one of those. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. I give you mine.
We have plenty.
We can actually share. Share one. Okay.
Okay, so have a seat. Welcome. Thanks for joining for this week conversation we will have in this short time. So we already told about adaptive reuse, and that would be the topic of this discussion. And as we don't have that much time, and I think we can't cover everything, I thought it best to concentrate on stories you have, experiences you have, some personal additions that anybody can take home with them, and focus on two topics of this topic or this theme, because I always find that adaptive reuse is some kind in a gray zone between rational, to do something because of reasons, and emotional or intuitive because of all its burdens and all its connections and all that. And I'm really curious about two things. One is the exact moment when an adaptive reuse project is giving birth, or when the decision is made. Why is it made? Is it made by who? And what we expect of it, that kind of things. And it's really good that you all come from different kind of perspectives, like lead designers, architects, client-side decision maker. So we all have different kind of reasons or different kind of methods to make these decisions. And the other topic would be on the emotional side, that these projects usually tend to focus on identity, focus on atmosphere, focus on stories. And there is always this kind of subjective or soft layer, like art, like events, like community involvement, or just the visual language that helps us create this kind of narrative to build up some kind of relation with the existing. And I'm really curious about a few successful events about this kind of building a story or building an identity. And how do you see whether we can use this as a conscious strategy? Could we make a tool of this subjective to achieve something coherent in the end? So these will be, I think, my first guesses, and I give you the stage, and let's start talking, and we'll see where we go. Okay, so...
May I? Yes.
Yeah, of course.
So just to connect with how Charles ended with the Budapest Transport Museum, I think that I don't want to talk too much about the project. You know very well how involved I am with doing this museum once in the future and building this actual plan. But more widely, Budapest is suffering from, at the same time, suffering from the signs of over-tourism. The tourism in Budapest is growing by 20% each year. Next year we will reach the levels of Lisbon. And we don't see the end of it. And all of it concentrates in the very downtown area. And all the efforts haven't been successful yet to expand this a little bit. And I think the most important, or the best possibility for this, similarly a bit what happened in Western Manhattan and with the Highline, is to use our industrial heritage around the city, in the Rust Belt ring around the city, and use not just the Transport Museum site, the Northern Maintenance Hall, the Diesel Hall, but as it was used with the opera, how it could be used with the beer factories in Kőbánya as well, which are beautiful buildings not far from the museum site, and how it could be used in different industrial sites, and use this strategically, culturally, at the same time create new magnets for tourism, and at the same time convey the message for the people who live outside the city center that you are important for us as well, because 2/3 or even more than that, 75% of the residents of Budapest live outside the Hungaria ring road, the tramline 1. And most of these residents of this city, and especially the suburban region, feel that everything is inside in the city center, in the downtown area. So expanding a little bit the public institutional offer for culture, for things to happen, for events, for nice public spaces outside of the historic core is important for both reasons. And I think this is where it's not just emotions. We have all the emotions that we see these beautiful industrial heritage buildings that we want to save them. We think that this is part of our heritage, it's part of our legacy. These have their own architectural value, and we want to save them. Mostly architects feel like that, but not just them. This weekend will be the Budapest 100 event again, which is about an all-growing event where local people want to go to all kinds of heritage buildings and celebrate the old buildings of the city. So we have an emotional attachment for these, that's for sure. But from the business point of view, from the city growth point of view, how it was showed in this New York example, these kind of regeneration projects, saving our industrial heritage, saving these buildings and fulfilling them with function, with good architecture, it can really generate multiplied economic benefits for the city. This is what I strongly believe in, and this is why I think very strongly that saving that diesel hall from demolition and rebuilding it according to the plans of DSR, which we worked on for years together in the Transport Museum, is not just about saving the Transport Museum, it's not just about keeping the Transport Museum in Budapest, it's about a lot more. It's about regenerating the whole part of Kőbánya, including the People's Park, the second biggest park after the one around us, or it's even bigger, but the second most important park after the city park where we are right now, and connecting the city park itself to the city center in a way that it becomes part of the fabric of the city, because currently it's detached from it. So it's a whole urban regeneration project. It's way more than just building a transport museum.
Fancy, you want to say something? Please.
I thought I will be the last who speak besides these gentlemen. So I was thinking ahead.
I mean, I have something to say, but they've heard me. They heard me for 40 minutes, so they don't need to hear me more. But I mean, what I'd say is, I don't want to be, oh, woe is me, I'm an architect, I have no leverage or power. However, usually the decision to keep a building is not made by the architect. It's made by an owner, a municipality, an institution. We have never once been approached by an owner to say, hey, would you like to build a brand new building or keep the one that's there right now? And I mean, I'd love it if that happened. And the closest thing we've had is in Milan. We're working on the Pirolino Tower in the north part of city center. And there was discussion about taking it down, and we said no, this is an important building, and we figured out a way to expand an office tower's footprint for the majority of the tower, and not and it's beautiful, a very elegant project, and not diminish its beauty and elegance, and still make it functional. So I think that's as close as we've come to that. I do think all adaptive reuse projects have emotion, and I think that's a great thing. And the emotion is based on history and ghosts, let's say.
And how do you find, because in Hungary we have that experience that it's very rare that a client comes with, I would like to keep this building. Well, if it's a heritage building, of course, they have to. But finding the arguments to convince them or convince themselves, it's always an interesting thing. And I would like to relate back to Dávid that these projects have effects outside their boundaries, and it's very important to make conscious decisions about those effects and how can we make them visible, how can we make them predictable, how can we put them into the Excel sheets when the decision is made. I think that's a key question or a key aspect. Because, for example, we had an initiative to save part of a railway bridge, an old railway bridge, and nearly succeeded with the help of good clients. But that was a struggle against the social environment, because it was really hard to explain why it's good here. And friends in London said that they can't enter a competition where they say they tear down a building because they are banned at the first moment, because there the social environment is much different. So it will be important to change this kind of social approach, I think. And what do you think are the best tools to achieve this, for the next project to be easier, to be accepted, like, for example, in a competition case?
I would say that it's not really the social acceptance. I haven't really felt ever, in Budapest at least, that when we try to save something, when we try to save a part of our industrial heritage, we try to save that part of the bridge, I never seen a public refusal. It's always about economy of scale, about project management. It's mostly about the one who pays the bill at the end, who is questioning these kind of decisions. But I think the public generally loves saving what's old and what's there, except maybe when it's really ugly, but that's usually not the case when we want to save something. Maybe there are some cases for that, but that's rare. I think that the work we have to do here is not convincing the public that we have to save our industrial heritage, for example. The part is to come up with schemes where this explains itself. Remember that we are in a city where the government currently invests billions of euros in rebuilding the castle into its old glory, how it looked like in the 19th century, even rebuilding buildings which were there once but have been demolished and now are being rebuilt from scratch. And I mean, this is a highly political decision, but at the same time, I see the reasoning behind it, saying that these kind of historic environments attract tourism, attract revenues, and recreate a cityscape which was lost. We have a cityscape which is not lost. These kind of heritage buildings we have all around in our cities, not just industrial heritage buildings, even the eclectic downtown residential buildings all around of this city. Concentrating on saving those and showing the secondary benefits, I think, is important, and we have to pursue this kind of debate. In my first field, or my major field in public transportation, I remember 20 years ago that explaining the social environmental benefits of investing in public transportation was hard. It was still a debate 25 years ago that public transportation is making losses, deficit. Why are we investing in it? Now no one says that. No one. Everyone understands that public transportation has its social, environmental, even economical benefits, and it makes sense to invest in it. I think the same applies mostly, especially in a city like Budapest with its potential, with its tourism magnet status, saving our built heritage. But these kind of secondary benefits, external benefits in some sense, I think not explained properly to the public, and I think this is the job we have to do.
Okay, and Charles, you mentioned at the Highline that you were there at a cocktail party and had this kind of feeling about, we would like to save this, and this is something of importance. What are the first steps that comes to your mind when you realize something and you want to make it happen?
I mean, to be clear, yes, all of us, Liz, Rick, and myself, had experiences breaking in and occupying that space illicitly. And so part of the thrill was being a place where you're not supposed to be, looking into people's bedroom windows from a public space, or not even public. But we didn't have say on whether to save it or not. And that came from the founders of the Friends of the Highline, who Giuliani, the mayor at the time, wanted to tear it down. So while it wasn't me, it was citizen activists who saved the line. And that is pretty exciting. And I think that's a political move that comes from the ground up. They just went to community board meetings. They started finding people who felt that it was, like me, who had probably been up there and said, God, this is such a cool thing. Like, there's nothing like this. And they just started getting people attached to the mission to save it. And then Diane von Furstenberg came in, and a couple of wealthy, very influential New Yorkers came in, and that tipped it. But in the end, it wasn't me or my partners, but I think we won the competition because we sensed it. It was just in our experience, and we designed it not to kill that.
And it's very interesting when it comes really from the people, I think, and it's always a miracle for me that these places are usually non-places or no man's land, or places with heavy history, even sorrowful history from time to time, and it's really marvelous when some people recognize this as some kind of a value. And for example, in the new Transportation Museum, which is very interesting building, but very few know about it. And when we turn it into a museum, very few will know the history by themselves. And there are those small additions that can make this be, or make this visible, or make this work. And I'm really curious what tools you have, like an architect, like a client, to inspire this kind of storytelling. Are there any good examples of it?
I have two things in my mind. One is when you're talking that the value of these brownfield areas or spaces when you just first see it. If we are lucky with the museum site, because it's a cathedral of the Hungarian wagon maintenance, but if you go anywhere, it feels valuable, not because of the status, how that building or site was at his own era. So I mean, if something has a negative role or negative side back then, even then, if you go there now, you feel that something happened there. You feel some kind of identity. And for somehow we tend to feel it valuable and stronger. I think this can be one basis of the success of the brownfield developments.
Let me add that I think that the most important reason why we opened the site for temporary exhibitions and even for a bar or a kertem, like an outdoor bar many years ago, which was shown in Charles' presentation, was exactly this. Because still this museum site is in the very center of, not the very center of Budapest, but very close to the very populated part of Budapest. Tramline 1 just goes next to it, which is the densest tramway line, or one of the densest tramway lines of the city, but still no one knew what's inside and what's behind the barrier, because it was a MÁV, Hungarian State Railways maintenance site. So we opened it, even though when there was a big rain we had to close the museum because the rain was pouring in. We knew that the site is uneven, it's not fully accessible by wheelchair or something like that. And it's not suitable for bad weather, so if it's cold then it's very cold inside. But still, for the spring and summer days, we opened it for a temporary exhibition and for an outside bar, just to show the whole site for the public and for Budapest and for the press and for anyone who is interested. And it was very interesting that, I mean, a lot of people came and said, wow, this is here, we never knew. And some people came who said, oh, I was working here for 25 years, and I thought I will never see this place again. So it somehow showed as well that really the architecture itself and the building itself has its own story, has its own legacy, has its own background, and I think that was the best communication campaign for our project. When people really came and saw it for themselves, anyone who was there, and there were tens of thousands of people who visited, will never forget this. And whenever they hear about this ongoing debate where the Transport Museum should be in Hungary, they will always know that was the site in Budapest what we were talking about. It tells the story 100 times better than the best DSR artist's impression could, because, you know, the space itself tells the whole story, I think.
Agreed.
I would like to add just a short experience I had a few days ago. I came across a designer called Jeffrey Miller. He's from London, and he created wall tiles for the London Underground made out of the dirt and waste and iron oxide from the tunnels. And they put it into machines, they burn it, and they make beautiful tiles of it, and they will use it at the next stations. And I found something really touching, maybe because I design metro stations and it's close to me, but this kind of unexpected connection, I think, has much more weight than we first guess. And I was really interesting to see the same kind of idea in your Canal Café. Mm-hmm. And how do you find that people there in Venice connect more to their localities? Or maybe after the My Long Opera, what were the feedback? Or was it a game changer in a kind?
So here's a wonderful thing and a horrible thing about our practice. We never repeat a project. So we may come up with the best idea that everybody says, oh, it's a prototype, it can go there, 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 there. And I'm saying, no. The Blur Pavilion, they wanted to buy it and turn it into a UFO museum. And they wanted to take it then to Bahrain or somewhere in the Gulf states. And we were like, no, it was made for here, for Lake Neuchâtel, for this event, for the experience, for the technology, for Siemens, and Canal Café, already people are asking where we can take it. In fact, I think there was an interview I had today about bringing something like that to the Danube. And I said, hire us and we'll think about the Budapest equivalent of that talks about the problem and the opportunity and the thrill that's specific to this place. So I think what those kinds of projects do is they change the way you think about making projects for a place. You know, I think Canal Café loses its mission and its effectiveness if it's not in Venice. It's not the same project. So I wish we could license our projects, our work, because believe me, we lose a lot of money doing these things. And it'd be wonderful if we could make it up somehow. And Mile Long Opera is another one. We have been commissioned to bring it to Barcelona and a couple of other cities. And then, you know, we started thinking about it. This is one of my partners. This is Liz's project more than mine, but I've certainly helped on it. But, you know, we're like, well, the lyrics were about New York City. It was on the Highline. There were songs, or 8 songs, that connected together. They're all in the same tonal register, and so they could be sung at the same time in a cappella fashion. The lyrics were about the places where they were on the line. It was so site-specific. You cannot do that in another city. You can take the notion, and then it's a brand new project with brand new collaborators and brand new work, but then it becomes that deliciousness that projects should have. The same kind of deliciousness of the Museum of Transport, in the same sort of, genus loci, I guess is that kind of combination of words. Only there. That is the only place it could be, and that thrill can't be matched, even if you try to take it somewhere else.
And Bence, do you have any memories of any sort of localities or special elements of this project, like project architect, you know it really deeply?
The holistic aspect is important as well, but the real material and the reasonable aspect can be important as well. Of course, you just come across because our site is full of elements that you think, okay, yeah, I would preserve this and this and this and this. And for example, we have a lot of in Hungarian it's called keramit. It's a yellow ceramics, mainly used for roads, very slippery and wet. We had tons in the flooring, and we started to think how to use it. And firstly we tested the design for the bathrooms. You know, you can clean it. But then finally the look was not clean enough. You know, today you have so many requirements in a up-to-date building that you have to meet, especially if it's a museum for climate and light control and everything. So it was not possible to use it how it was used originally. We used it as an aggregate in our terrazzo flooring, because then that kind of tone of the color and the shyness can be transmitted. But to allow this, we need to involve building chemical specialists, experts, who can, with us, do the recipe for the concrete materials of that terrazzo. So sometimes what is obvious for our mind is very tricky when you really do it. But this is how we did in the design, that all these aggregates would be included in the terrazzo flooring. So this kind of yellowish shine would survive and continue living with the building. Yeah.
If I may add one thing here,
Absolutely.
I think these are very important parts to saving the soul of a place. And I think the Transport Museum design, which was done by DSR, Team Panon, and the whole team, for the Kőbánya site, really tried to save as much from these old buildings, and not just the buildings themselves, but from the signposts outside, and all the little things which were reminding of this railway past of this building. And we are trying to do the same now in the Rákosrend as a marshalling yard. Some of you might know that Budapest just acquired, using its preemptive purchase rights against the Hungarian state, an 85-hectare marshalling yard, former marshalling yard from MÁV. We're just in the process of taking over the land from the Hungarian State Railways, which is not an easy legal process. And we had these discussions just recently, what we want to save and what they should demolish before they give over. And we said, oh, we want to save all these railway memorabilia, let's call them like that. So the signposts, the switch handler, and so on. Because we feel we don't have a design yet. We will start an international urbanism competition sometime this year, June or July, for this site, and it has to transform into a new residential area and a new park. But in that park, we want to save as much as possible from this railway legacy, this railway history, to remind people that what was here and what is the history of the site. And you have to start this from the 0 point. Even now, before the urban design competition, we are already looking at what might be valuable on the site and what could be saved. So I think that this is a very important approach. And it's not just, I mean, you could put a green sauce on this and say that, okay, this has an environmental value. It depends how much it has. Sometimes it has, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know about this London Tube example, but I guess the energy used for that, recreating those tiles, would match a mass-produced one. But it gives, I think what is more important in these examples is that it gives a cultural flavor, a unique cultural flavor to these sites and to these places, which will create that extra value, which will create that extra real estate value, city value, extra attraction to that site, that kind of cultural extra, which make these kind of places special places, just compared to a built from scratch new real estate development. So that's why I think it's very important to pay attention to these details.
Well, thank you. That was, I think, a very important answer and a very good close to closing line. And I don't want to open a big new topic. I just ask, do you have a second edition of My Long Opera, maybe following the life of the people and what happened with them?
Oh, interesting. You're saying, God, everybody is into the sequels. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. That'd be something to think about, I suppose. Right there in the same spot. They have wanted us to do it again, and so it's possible that we'll put it on. It's that part of the work has been done. So I'll let everybody in the room know. You'll have to. It's free, by the way. It was free that we insisted on that, but you do have to reserve a spot.
Oh, it's great. Actually, we had a university course, a short workshop where we designed theater displays or theater backgrounds for plays done in the metro lines of Budapest. So the students entertained the idea how it would look like in the middle of the night when people go in and have some kind of experience. And my long opera was a very strong impressional basis for them.
So adaptive reuse is not just about buildings, but public spaces as well. So when we turn industrial sites into cultural sites, it's a kind of 21st centuryfication of buildings in an urban context. When our plane is leaving, the gates are closing. So I think when you redesign a car channel or a car corridor in the middle of the city, which is a 20th century approach, into a public space, into a pedestrian space, it's the same kind of approach. It's an adaptive reuse project, but we don't call it like that because not architects designing it mostly. But that's the same kinds of transport public space projects. So once we have the Danube embankment in Budapest replaced from a car channel into a public pedestrian space, which the city has plans for a while, and once in the future we will do it, I think the Hungarian Budapest version of the My Long Opera could be done there as well.
Okay, let's talk.
Yeah. Okay, then. Thank you very much, guys, to join me into this conversation and discover these ways of reframing what's negative into positive. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.